Assessment for learning is our formative assessment strategies where we start with providing students with a learning target, giving them good and weak examples, giving them descriptive feedback, allowing students to self-assess themselves, focus their instruction, and practice on revision, tracking, reflecting, and sharing their information. Imagine yourself stepping into a game to perform before ever practicing the sport. Or for me, standing in a massive crowd ready to run a half marathon before I ever put on a pair of sneakers or trained to embrace 13.1 miles. Assessment for learning is formative assessment that's necessary in the classroom to help our students value learning, practice, and prepare prior to assessment of learning and giving them a grade for that summative assessment. I'm going to relate this to my preparation for a half marathon. Practice makes for prepared students. Allowing students the opportunities to practice for learning is just like practicing for a game, or for me, training for a half marathon. In the beginning, we must establish a goal. So I'm going to run a half marathon. Is this goal descriptive enough for me to obtain exactly what I need to achieve, or should the goal be more descriptive? We learned in our first lesson how to approach a learning target to make it as descriptive as possible using CABD. So my condition is that after following the Nike App training program, I, a 28-year-old female, will be able to complete a half marathon with an 8-minute and 30-second per mile pace. So this is relatable to our first strategy because we must establish a clear learning target and goal to allow students to answer, where am I going? We put this in the front of our classroom in order for students to establish exactly their behavior, their condition, and their outcome of what's happening in the classroom. We then must provide students with a model and a framework so that they know exactly what's expected in the classroom. If we provide students with a good model shown on the left of a solid training program versus a weak model, which is shown on the right of a weak plan, students will be able to recognize the differences between strong and needs work and will be able to give themselves their own feedback as well as understand the descriptive feedback that I provide them in the classroom. Strategy 3, providing the students with descriptive feedback. I wouldn't stop in the middle of a race and ask myself what to do in order to finish. I need description feedback from either peers or from a trainer in order to make sure that I can progress throughout the training program in order to perform. For instance, a praise and what can I do next method would provide me with the opportunities of what I've done well each week and what I can work on in order to improve the following week to reach my ultimate goal of crossing the finish line. In strategy 4, which is self-assessment, we must be able to self-assess ourselves, justify providing with evidence, establish a new goal, and develop an action plan. When something's all in my head, will I ever be able to run a full 13.1 miles? I must be able to self-assess where I've been and where I'm going. I can ask myself what I did last week, provide evidence using my app, establish a new goal, and provide myself with an action plan in order to move forward to be successful. In strategy 5, I need to think about anything that I've heard about a half marathon and dislodge this misconception. Misconceptions can stand in the way. For instance, on my first 12-mile run, I had the largest bowl of pasta the night before, thinking that all I should do is eat a bunch of carbs in order to run the longest race that I've run so far. However, this was a major no-no, and I got huge cramps the next day. According to Runner's World, dinner should be relatively small but carb heavy. Therefore, I need to dislodge this misconception about what I thought was true in the past. I then need to establish a growth mindset to know that I can move forward. Effectiveness is whether students are practicing with a learning intention. I need to put forth effort of what my goal is and establish exactly what I need in order to move forward. My learning intention is that it takes time to practice and develop the strength necessary to be successful. This is exactly what happens in a race, and it's exactly what should happen in a classroom in order for our students to be successful on their summative assessment. Ultimately, when I'm ready to perform and cross that finish line, I have a lot of self-reflection to do. It allows me to look back over a collection of what I've done in order to know that I can indeed cross that finish line, and I can share what I've learned with others around me. It's important that I share my knowledge and my passion about running and letting other people know that it's not so bad, just as well as my students in my classroom should be able to experience and share their knowledge with people around them to show and demonstrate what they have learned. In the end, my goal is for my students to establish the love of learning and dedication through formative assessment to improve their self-confidence on our students' ability levels. And remember, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon when we learn in our classrooms.